First contact. Admiral Xenra stood at the observation deck of the Galactic Federation's flagship, her crystalline form refracting the light of Earth's sun. The third planet of this unremarkable solar system had caught the Federation's attention not through any technological achievement, but through the chaotic mess of radio signals it constantly broadcasted into space. "Primitive," murmured Sub-Commander Vress, his tentacles writhing in mild disgust as they observed the blue planet. "They haven't even established a unified planetary government." Xenra remained silent, her crystalline sensors absorbing data about the planet below. The humans, as they called themselves, were indeed technologically primitive by Federation standards. They still relied on combustion engines, had barely reached their own moon, and continued to use fossil fuels. Yet something about their development pattern was unlike anything the Federation had encountered in its 50,000 years of exploration. "They're fascinating," Dr. Ayatel interjected, her holographic form flickering as she projected herself onto the observation deck. As the Federation's leading xenoanthropologist, her opinion carried significant weight. "Look at their rate of technological advancement. From first flight to space travel in less than 70 years. From basic computing to global information networks in less than 50. They're accelerating at an unprecedented rate." Xenra's crystalline structure shifted, creating patterns that indicated deep thought. Yet they remained divided, fighting among themselves over resources and ideologies. "That's what makes them unique," Dr. Ayatel continued. "They'd progress not despite their conflicts, but because of them. Each crisis, each challenge, pushes them to innovate in ways we never considered. They don't wait for perfect solutions. They adapt, improvise, and overcome." The Admiral's attention was drawn to a particular city below, where humans had transformed a polluted harbor into a thriving ecosystem in less than a century. Nearby, massive wind turbines turned slowly in the ocean breeze, a simple yet effective solution to their energy needs. Primitive, yes, but elegant in its simplicity. "Their medical science is particularly intriguing," Dr. Ayatel added. "While we focused on perfecting genetic engineering, they explored pharmaceutical solutions. Their approach to treating diseases is remarkably diverse, sometimes using the latest synthetic compounds, other times drawing from ancient natural remedies. They never discard old knowledge. They build upon it." Sub-Commander Vress's tentacles twisted in a pattern of skepticism. "They still die from simple diseases. Their lifespans are barely a century. Their bodies are fragile. Their immune systems primitive. Yet they've eradicated diseases that plagued them for millennia," Xenra observed. "They've learned to transplant organs, repair neural damage, and even manipulate their own genetic code, all within a few centuries of discovering basic germ theory. Their methods are crude, but their results." She paused as new data streamed through her crystalline matrix. Somewhere in a small research facility, human scientists had just discovered a new way to deliver targeted medications using modified virus shells. In another lab, they were developing artificial organs using 3D printing technology. Primitive solutions, but the underlying principles. "Prepare for first contact," Xenra announced, her decision crystallizing both figuratively and literally, but not through their governments. "I want to meet their scientists, their innovators, their problem solvers." "Admiral," Vress questioned, his tentacles forming patterns of confusion. "Protocol dictates we approach their governing bodies first." "Protocol was written for conventional species, Sub-Commander. These humans, they're anything but conventional. Dr. Ayatel, prepare a selection of our most challenging unsolved problems. I want to see how they approach them." As the Earth continued its rotation below them, Xenra's crystalline form sparkled with anticipation. The Federation had encountered many species over the millennia, but something told her these humans would surprise them all. Their gift wasn't in their technology or their physical capabilities, but in their unique way of seeing problems and their relentless drive to solve them. Little did she know, humanity's greatest test was about to begin, and their unique gifts would soon be needed more desperately than anyone could imagine. The challenge. 3 months after first contact, Dr. Sarah Chen stood in her laboratory at MIT, staring at what appeared to be a floating crystal. In reality, it was Admiral Xendra's chosen form of communication, a small fragment of her crystalline body serving as a direct link to the Federation flagship in orbit. "You're certain about these readings?" Sarah asked, her dark eyes scanning the holographic data floating above her workbench. "The pathogen adapts to any countermeasure within hours." The crystal pulsed with soft blue light as Xendra's voice emanated from it. "Correct. The Nexus Plague, as we've designated it, has already affected 3 Federation species. Our most advanced medical AI systems can't predict its mutations. Even our quantum computers can't keep up with its adaptation rate." Sarah ran her fingers through her graying hair, a habit from her decades in research. Around her, the laboratory hummed with activity, a mixture of Earth's best equipment and some Federation technology that still seemed like magic to her. But right now, she was thinking about something much older than any of this technology. "Tell me about the first infection," she said, pulling up a chair. "Not the data. Tell me the story of how it happened." The crystal flickered with patterns that Sarah had learned to recognize as confusion. "The data contains all relevant information." "Humor me," Sarah interrupted. "Sometimes the story tells us things the data misses." There was a pause. Then Xendra began to speak. As she described the first outbreak on a Federation mining colony, Sarah closed her eyes, listening not just to the words but to the patterns. Something about the way the disease spread, the way it adapted. "It's not random," she muttered, eyes snapping open. "Admiral, this pathogen isn't just adapting. It's learning. But not like AI learns, more like how bacteria on Earth developed antibiotic resistance." The crystal pulsed rapidly. "We know it adapts." "No, you're not understanding." Sarah stood up, excitement building in her voice. "On Earth, we spent centuries fighting bacteria that developed resistance to our antibiotics. But we eventually realized we were approaching it wrong. Instead of trying to kill them directly, we learned to disrupt their communication systems. Quorum sensing inhibitors. We stopped trying to outgun them and started thinking about how to outsmart them." She rushed to her computer, fingers flying over the keyboard. "Your quantum computers are trying to predict its mutations, but they're looking for patterns in the wrong place. This thing spreads like a virus but adapts like a bacterial colony. It's using chemical signaling to coordinate its mutations across an entire population." The crystal's pulsing slowed, a sign Sarah had learned meant deep consideration. "Our analysis showed no evidence of chemical signaling." "Because you were looking for the wrong kind of signals," Sarah explained. "Your sensors are calibrated for known biological communication methods. But what if—" She pulled up an old research paper from 2023. "Look at this. Earth bacteria sometimes use methods we didn't even know to look for until we stumbled across them by accident. Electrical signals, quantum entanglement at a cellular level, even gravity-mediated responses." For several moments, the crystal remained still. When Xenra spoke again, there was a new tone in her voice. "You're suggesting we stop trying to predict its mutations and instead focus on disrupting its ability to coordinate those mutations." "Exactly." Sarah grabbed a tablet and began sketching. "We don't need to be faster than its adaptation rate if we can prevent the adaptations from spreading through the population. It's like, imagine trying to catch every runner in a marathon versus simply blocking the race route." The crystal pulsed with rapid patterns of blue and white. "This is not how we approach problems. Our medical science focuses on perfection, understanding and controlling every variable. Sometimes perfection is the enemy of good enough," Sarah said, quoting her old PhD advisor. "Humans learned that lesson the hard way. We couldn't perfect our environment, so we learned to adapt to it. We couldn't perfect our medicines, so we learned to work with our body's natural defenses. We couldn't perfect our societies, so we learned to thrive in chaos." She looked at the data again, seeing it with new eyes. Your advanced technology is actually working against you here. You're trying to solve this with brute force computing when what you need is, she smiled, a little human ingenuity. The crystal's pulsing took on a pattern Sarah had never seen before. Dr. Chen, I need you to assemble a team. Not just medical researchers. I want people who study bacterial communication, quantum biology, even social network theory. Your species' habit of crossing disciplinary boundaries might be exactly what we need. Sarah was already reaching for her phone. I know just the people. But Admiral, we'll need access to your data on the quantum cellular structures of Federation species. All of it. That information is highly classified. And now you need to decide what's more important, maintaining secrecy or saving lives. Sarah's voice was firm. This is how humans work, Admiral. We share information, we collaborate, we build on each other's ideas. It's messy and chaotic, and sometimes we make mistakes, but it's how we solve problems. The crystal went dark for a long moment, then blazed with bright blue light. You'll have everything you need. But Dr. Chen, there are billions of lives at stake. Sarah picked up the crystal, meeting its glow with steady eyes. Then it's a good thing you came to Earth. Impossible odds against overwhelming threats. That's when humans do their best work. As she began making calls, Sarah couldn't help but smile. The Federation was about to learn why humanity had survived every catastrophe their planet had thrown at them. They might not have the most advanced technology or the most powerful computers, but they had something that might prove even more valuable. The ability to see old problems in new ways, and the determination to never stop trying until they succeeded. The race against the Nexus plague was about to begin, and humanity was ready to show the galaxy what they could do. Unexpected solutions. The NIT laboratory had transformed over the past 2 weeks. Federation technology merged with human equipment in ways that would have seemed impossible before. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the center of what her team had dubbed the Chaos Room, surrounded by holographic displays and the constant chatter of 24 of Earth's brightest minds. The quantum signaling network is more complex than we thought. Dr. Raj Patel, a quantum biology specialist from Oxford, pointed at a shifting pattern of light. It's not just chemical or electrical. The pathogen is using quantum entanglement to coordinate its mutations across vast distances. Like a biological blockchain, Maya Rodriguez, a network theory expert, added from her workstation. Each mutation has to be validated by the entire colony before it spreads. Sarah watched the patterns, reminded of how ant colonies coordinated their behavior. The solution was there, just at the edge of understanding. They just needed to. Hey, has anyone had lunch? Tom Jung, their youngest team member, walked in carrying several bags of takeout. I got Indian, Thai, and those weird purple Federation food cubes. The crystal containing Admiral Xenra's presence pulsed with what Sarah had learned was amusement. The Federation found humans' need for regular meals inefficient, but they'd grown accustomed to it. As the team gathered around the food, conversations shifted from technical discussions to casual chatter. Sarah was about to remind them of their urgent deadline when she noticed something. The way they clustered together, sharing food and ideas, it reminded her of something. That's it, she suddenly exclaimed, startling Tom into dropping his curry. We've been thinking about this all wrong. We don't need to stop the pathogen's communication. We need to join the conversation. The crystal pulsed rapidly. Explain. Sarah grabbed a napkin, sketching quickly. Look at how the pathogen coordinates. It's like a social network, right? But what happens to a social network when too many foreign elements join at once? Maya's eyes widened. It breaks down. The signal-to-noise ratio becomes too high to maintain coherence. Exactly. Sarah turned to Raj. Could we create artificial cells that mimic the pathogen's quantum signaling pattern? Not to attack it, but to join its network. Raj frowned, calculating. Like quantum spam. More like quantum social engineering, Maya corrected. We flood their network with so many false signals that they can't coordinate their mutations effectively. The crystal's pulsing became erratic. You want to create more of the pathogen. No, Sarah explained. Excitement building. We create empty shells, cells that can quantum signal but can't replicate or cause harm. They'll be like Twitter bots in the pathogen's social network, drowning out the real signals with noise. Tom looked up from cleaning his curry spill. Like how bacteria use quorum sensing to coordinate, but if you introduce too many false signals, they can't tell if they have enough numbers to activate certain genes. Yes, Sarah pointed at him. The Federation's approach was to try to predict and counter each mutation. But we don't need to. We just need to disrupt their ability to coordinate those mutations effectively. The room erupted in excited chatter as the implications sank in. The crystal remained silent for several moments before speaking. This is not how we would approach this problem. That's why it might work, Sarah said softly. Sometimes the best way to solve a problem isn't to overpower it or outsmart it, but to change the rules of the game entirely. Over the next 72 hours, the team worked nonstop. Federation biotechnology merged with human theoretical models. Quantum computers ran simulations based on social network theory. 3 different culinary traditions fueled the humans' creativity. When the first test results came in, even Admiral Xenra's crystalline form seemed to vibrate with excitement. In isolated samples, the modified quantum signaling shells were successfully disrupting the pathogen's coordination. The plague couldn't maintain coherent mutations across its population. It's working, Raj announced, his tired eyes bright with triumph. The pathogen's adaptation rate has dropped by 83%. But Sarah wasn't celebrating yet. Admiral, we need to move fast. The pathogen will eventually adapt to this strategy too. But if we can deploy this solution across all infected systems simultaneously, we can disrupt their entire network at once, Maya finished. Like a DDoS attack on a biological scale. The crystal pulsed with decision. I'll inform the Federation Council immediately. We'll need to coordinate deployment across 17 star systems. Wait, Sarah held up her hand. There's one more thing. This solution, it's temporary. We're buying time, not solving the problem permanently. Explained, the crystal commanded. The pathogen will eventually develop new communication methods, but while its network is disrupted, its mutations will be local, isolated. That means we can develop targeted treatments for each strain, Tom caught on. Instead of one super adaptive plague, we'll be dealing with multiple smaller, more manageable infections. Sarah nodded. We're not killing it. We're breaking it down into problems we can solve. It's not elegant. It's not perfect. But it might save billions of lives, the crystal finished. Dr. Chen, your team has done something remarkable. You've shown us a completely new way of thinking about problems. As the team began preparing for large-scale deployment, Sarah looked around the chaos of their laboratory. Earth technology jury-rigged to Federation devices, take-out containers next to quantum computers, hastily scribbled notes next to holographic displays. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't perfect, but it was uniquely human. And sometimes, that was exactly what the universe needed. The human element. The Federation's Emergency Response Center dwarfed anything on Earth. Sarah Chen stood before a holographic display that showed 17 star systems, each with infected populations marked in pulsing red. Around her, representatives from a dozen alien species coordinated the largest simultaneous medical intervention in galactic history. Deployment vessels ready in the Centauri sector, a voice announced. Proxima Medical Station standing by, came another report. Sarah watched the countdown timer, her hand clutching the crystal containing Admiral Xenra's presence. In 10 minutes, they would release their quantum-disrupting shells across all infected systems. Everything had to be perfect. Dr. Chen, a melodious voice called. A floating gas cloud that Sarah recognized as Ambassador Helios from the Nebula Collective approached. We've detected a problem in the Rigel system. The pathogen there has developed a unique mutation. Your solution may not work." Sarah's heart raced, but years of research had taught her to stay calm under pressure. "Show me the data." The holographic display zoomed in on Rigel, showing molecular structures that twisted in impossible ways. The pathogen there had developed something like a quantum encryption system for its signals. "We should delay the deployment," Ambassador Helios suggested, their gas form swirling with concern. "Recalibrate for this new strain." "No," Sarah said firmly, studying the data. "We can't give it more time to adapt. We need—" She paused, an idea forming. "We need to think like the pathogen." The crystal in her hand pulsed questioningly. "Explain." Sarah turned to the assembled alien representatives. "The pathogen adapts by finding weaknesses in our defenses. So instead of trying to break its encryption, we give it what it wants, a weakness to exploit." She quickly pulled up the deployment plans for the Rigel system. "Look, we modify a small portion of our quantum shells to emit a signal that seems vulnerable. The pathogen will detect this and try to adapt to exploit it. But that would strengthen it," Ambassador Helios objected. "No," Sarah smiled. "Because while it's focusing on that false vulnerability, the main deployment will hit it from another direction entirely. It's like a magic trick." "Misdirection." The crystal pulsed rapidly. "You want to deceive the pathogen." "We want it to deceive itself," Sarah explained. "Its greatest strength, its ability to quickly adapt, becomes a weakness if we can guide that adaptation in the direction we choose." There was a moment of silence in the control center as the alien representatives processed this suggestion. To them, it seemed almost primitive, using deception instead of overwhelming force or perfect technological solutions. 3 minutes to deployment, the automated system announced. Admiral Xendra's crystal pulsed with decision patterns. "Do it. Modify the Rigel deployment as Dr. Chen suggests." Sarah's fingers flew over the holographic controls, making the necessary adjustments. Around her, she could sense the doubt from some of the alien representatives. But she'd learned something important over the past weeks. Sometimes the best solutions came from embracing uncertainty rather than trying to eliminate it. 1 minute to deployment. Sarah took a deep breath, watching the display. Across 17 star systems, medical ships moved into position. The fate of billions rested on a solution that combined advanced alien technology with human intuition and creativity. Deployment initiated. The display erupted in waves of blue as the quantum-disrupting shells were released. Sarah watched the Rigel system intently, holding her breath as the pathogen detected their fake vulnerability. "Rigel strain responding exactly as predicted," a technician announced. "It's adapting to exploit the perceived weakness. Quantum network disruption successful." Across all 17 systems, the results began pouring in. The pathogen's communication networks were breaking down, its coordinated mutations falling into chaos. In the Rigel system, the deception had worked perfectly. The pathogen had adapted right into their trap. "Remarkable," Ambassador Helios whispered, their gas form shimmering with amazement. "You didn't try to overpower it or outsmart it. You used its own nature against it." Sarah nodded, watching as the infection rates began to drop across all systems. Sometimes the best way to solve a problem is to step back and ask whether you're asking the right question. We couldn't beat the pathogen at its own game, so we changed the rules. The crystal in her hand pulsed with what she now recognized as pride. "The Federation has always valued perfection, Dr. Chen. We seek perfect solutions, perfect systems, perfect understanding. But you humans, you've shown us that there's strength in imperfection, in adaptation, in embracing chaos rather than trying to control it." Around them, the Emergency Response Center erupted in celebrations as the success of their deployment became clear. But Sarah was already thinking ahead to the next phase, helping each system deal with their now isolated strains of the pathogen. "We've won the battle," she said quietly, "but now comes the hard part. Each system will need a customized treatment plan. We'll need to coordinate research teams, share data, adapt our approaches based on local conditions. The crystal pulsed with what might have been laughter. More chaos. Sarah smiled. More humanity. Because that's what we do best. We adapt, we improvise, we overcome. Not by being perfect, but by being perfectly human. A new understanding. 1 year after the Nexus Plague Crisis, the Great Hall of the Federation Council gleamed with crystalline light. Representatives from thousands of worlds gathered to mark a historic occasion, Earth's formal acceptance as a full member of the Galactic Federation. Dr. Sarah Chen stood before them, still amazed by the diversity of life forms surrounding her. Admiral Xenra, no longer confined to a small crystal fragment, towered above the assembly in her full crystalline glory. We gather today not just to welcome a new member, but to acknowledge a transformation in our understanding of what it means to be advanced. The Admiral's form shifted, creating patterns that reflected every color in the spectrum. For millennia, the Federation measured advancement by technological achievement. We sought perfection through computation and control. But Earth has shown us a different kind of advancement, one born not of perfection, but of adaptation. Sarah watched as holographic displays activated around the hall, showing scenes from the past year. Teams of human scientists working alongside alien experts across the galaxy, applying their unique problem-solving approaches to challenges beyond the plague. The human method, as it had come to be known, had spread through the Federation like a benevolent virus of its own. Your species lacks our quantum computers, Ambassador Helios observed, their gaseous forms swirling thoughtfully. Your bodies cannot manipulate matter at the atomic level. Your ships cannot fold space-time. Yet you've contributed more to the Federation in 1 year than many species have in centuries. Sarah stepped forward to address the council. That's because advancement isn't just about creating perfect solutions. It's about understanding that there are always new ways to look at a problem. Humanity's gift isn't in our technology. It's in our perspective. She gestured to a nearby display, showing a team of human and alien researchers. We've learned that the most powerful innovations often come from combining different viewpoints. When we faced the plague, we succeeded not because we were smarter or more advanced, but because we were willing to approach the problem differently. The crystal matrix that served as the Council's central platform pulsed with agreement patterns. The Federation has already begun implementing human-inspired changes to our research methodologies. Cross-disciplinary teams, embracing uncertainty as a tool rather than an obstacle, encouraging creative approaches alongside analytical ones. But perhaps most importantly, Admiral Xenra added, we've learned that true advancement comes not from eliminating our differences, but from embracing them. Humanity's seeming chaos, your imperfect solutions, your constant adaptation. These are not weaknesses to be overcome, but strengths to be celebrated. Sarah couldn't help but smile as she remembered her first meetings with Federation scientists, their initial skepticism of human methods. Now those same scientists were eager to collaborate with Earth's research teams, recognizing that sometimes the best solutions came from unexpected directions. The galaxy faces many challenges, she addressed the Council. Climate changes on 1,000 worlds. Dark matter anomalies threatening entire sectors. Temporal distortions that defy our understanding of physics. We won't solve these problems with technology alone. We'll solve them by combining all our gifts. Federation precision with human creativity. Alien wisdom with Earth's adaptability. The hall erupted in a cascade of lights, sounds, and electromagnetic patterns, the Federation equivalent of applause. As Sarah watched, she saw something she never expected. Alien species beginning to adopt human gestures and expressions, just as humans had begun incorporating alien concepts into their thinking. Admiral Xenra's crystalline form shimmered with what Sarah now recognized as joy. Dr. Chen, you once told me that humanity's strength lies not in being perfect, but in being perfectly human. Now we understand that the Federation's strength lies not in making all species advance in the same way, but in allowing each to contribute their unique gifts to our shared future. As the ceremony continued, Sarah's mind wandered to her lab back on Earth, where human and alien scientists worked side by side, tackling challenges that once seemed impossible. They weren't seeking perfect solutions anymore. They were finding human solutions, alien solutions, hybrid solutions that worked in ways no one had imagined before. The Federation had given humanity the stars, but humanity had given the Federation something perhaps even more valuable, a new way of seeing the universe and all its possibilities. Not as a problem to be solved, but as a mystery to be explored, one imperfect, beautiful solution at a time. In the end, that was humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy. The understanding that true advancement comes not from reaching perfection, but from embracing the endless journey of discovery, adaptation, and growth that makes us who we are. The end.